2 years ago today, I was morbidly obese and incredibly depressed. But in 24 hours, I will be running my first marathon. So I'm gonna take a quick minute and tell you a little bit about how I went from 411 pounds to running my first marathon. I'm gonna break this down into steps or phases. And the first step was, I was 411 pounds, incredibly depressed, very sad, and I didn't feel like anything was going my way. I just kind of blamed the world for my problems. And I didn't realize I was doing it. But the reality was, I was just overweight, and that stemmed into everything in my life. Because I wasn't physically active, I wasn't healthy. And I think that's important to note, is that mental health can tie in very directly with your physical health. Also, not knowing that I was morbidly obese, or not realizing I was morbidly obese, didn't help. Step one is realizing how unhealthy I was. I didn't really notice, and that's gonna sound weird because I was 411 pounds, how would I not notice? I was so focused on how sad I was that I wasn't focused on how heavy I was, if that makes sense. So I spent the better part of my days just moping around, falling asleep, napping, doing whatever to avoid the real problem, which was I needed to be physically active. My wife sat down one day, kind of cornered me in the car and said, I need someone who will help me raise our children when we have them. I need someone who's going to do things with me and experience and go on adventures and all of that. And she's like, you're not that right now. She's like, I love you deeply, but you're falling apart, and it starts with your physical health. And it's crazy because I hadn't heard that before, right? Like, I didn't realize that my physical health was a big problem for anyone around me, but it was. You know, we had our daughter on the way at the time, and you know, that got me really thinking. I didn't want to let my daughter down, and I didn't want my daughter to not have a good father. And so that was the first step, was just my wife telling me, in, for lack of better words, hey, you're fat, but I don't care about that. I just know that you're not going to be healthy, and that's not good for our children. So that was step one. Step two then was, where do I start? Obviously I was, 411 pounds. How do I start? Lifting weights is not going to get me there. I was already doing that. I just wasn't moving a whole lot when I was lifting weights. So if lifting weights isn't going to get me there, and that's the only physical health I know, what do I do? I was like, okay, well, I have to do something. I went ahead and I just was like, do you want to go on a walk? I can walk. I know I can walk. So we started walking a local trail. And that was about a mile every day, and it helped me to realize, like, okay, I can physically move, and I did start to feel better. My brain started feeling better. It felt like the longer I would walk, the better I would feel, and that correlated to a lot of stability. So I cleaned up my diet for a little bit, and I lost about 60 pounds that first year, which was really, really good. Obviously, I'm very happy with the weight loss that I had. So then my son was born, and I circled back. He had a whole bunch of health problems. We were eating really bad again, and it was winter, so we weren't walking as much, and it just seemed like the excuses piled up. And one day I was sitting in the car, and I was taking a bite out of a cheeseburger, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, no, we're doing it again. No, we're doing this again, and that's not okay. I was like, I never want to eat a fast food cheeseburger again. I was like, I'm never gonna do it again. That decision right there spiraled into everything I did for the next year. So that was a year ago. I was 330 pounds at that point, so I had lost about 60 pounds, somewhere around 60 pounds. And I had to keep going. So step two, obviously, was going on walks. And step three was, we were on a walk one day, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, we're walking, and there's a light post straight ahead, and I was like, you think I can make it to that light post? And she goes, yeah, it's only like 30 feet away. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to run to that light post. And as I start running, I hear my daughter say something. I didn't know what she said. She's about 2 at this point. And I was out of breath before I didn't make it to the light post. And it was maybe 20 yards. And so I was kind of disappointed. I started walking back towards my wife, who was catching up to me pretty quickly. And as I get back, my daughter says, Daddy, run. And I was like, it gave me goosebumps. I was like, okay, well, my daughter wants to see that, so I have to do it again. And so I could only do it a few times the first couple runs. And my daughter would get so excited and she would love it. And that to me was like, okay, well now step 3 is set some goals. So goal 1 was run a mile and consecutively. And so I started running regularly. It took me about 3 months. It was July of last year. I was able to run my first mile consecutively. It took me 14 minutes, no stopping. Jogging was acceptable, obviously, because if it's a 14-minute mile, it's pretty slow. But I ran a full mile and I was so proud. And it was the first time in my life I had experienced a runner's high, or what I believe is a runner's high. And I cried. I was so proud, right? I hit my first goal. So after that, I set another goal. It was run a 5K. I want to be able to run a 5K. My first 5K was in November of 2024.
Good job.
Let's go, Cameron.
Shane Barber.
Let's go, Cam.
Isabel Stool Stats. Well done. Great job to the Thorntons.
And I, at that point, had lost another 80 pounds. I was down to 275 pounds. And ran that 5K, and I set another goal. So if I can run a 5K, now I definitely can run this 10K. I'm going to run the 10K. So I set up for a January 1st 10K.
Go, baby.
And it was some point around that time that my daughter did something that made me realize I was making an impact on my child's life and my family's life all at the same time as my own. And she comes around the corner and she was wearing my backpack and she had a watch on. She has a little watch that looks like mine. And she pokes it and she goes, "Look, Daddy, I'm gonna run like you." Look, Daddy, I'm gonna run like you. And you know, I was morbidly obese and sorry, I'm crying. I was morbidly obese, but my daughter only saw me becoming healthy, and she wanted to emulate that. And I know now that the 4th step is do it for something different. I'm not doing it to look good. I'm doing it to give my family a foundation that says we can be healthy together, and give them something to be proud of, and give myself something to be proud of. So I ran the 10K, went really well. I set another goal. I want to run a marathon. I skipped over half marathon. I was just going straight to a marathon. Hired a coach, and I was going to run a marathon. And so for the last, I don't know how many weeks that is, about 15 weeks, I have trained for a marathon. It is something that I had never thought in my life I would do. But it also made me realize we do the comfortable things so often in life that you become blind to the uncomfortable. And I am so excited for tomorrow. I'm very nervous. I got injured a couple weeks ago and now my foot's was hurting, and then I finally was able to run 4 miles on Monday. And so my run is on Saturday. I was able to run 4 miles on Monday, no pain, no issues at all. And I'm like, okay, well, we're here now. So tomorrow marks a new step. Celebrate completed goals. To this point, I haven't celebrated. I haven't really taken the moment until my daughter came around the corner with that backpack on. I didn't notice the impact I was making. And I need to celebrate it. So tomorrow, I fully intend on celebrating and enjoying that moment when I walk across that finish line or run across. I hope I run across the finish line, but who knows? Cramping's gonna be incredibly bad. When I run across that finish line, I'm gonna celebrate and I'm gonna brag and I'm gonna tell the world about how much changed and how much what we do matters to our own little ecosystem that we have, right? So I'm excited. Tomorrow is going to mark a very, 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 very big milestone in my life, but I'm not done there. After I celebrate my victory, I will be signing up for an ultramarathon. I haven't decided the length of the ultramarathon, but I am confident I will be doing a 50K this year, as well as potentially a 50 mile. We'll see what happens with the 50 mile. I think there's one in October that a group of people I know are going to be doing, and so I think I might be doing that as well. So stay tuned. There's more videos coming, more content related around running and physical health. And I mean, really, I want to give you guys a reason to subscribe. I want to give people hope and motivation to get there. it's so hard and so scary, especially if you're so overweight or you're massively depressed or you don't know what you're doing. It can be hard, it can be daunting, but I want to create a community around that, and I'm excited to have you guys here. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, wish me luck for tomorrow.